My first guest tonight has won 12 Emmys and is recognized as one of the most credible voices in the world of sports. Please welcome the lead announcer for the NBA on NBC, and a very cool guy, Bob Costas.
Tape of it.
What was that? That's funny. What you were just what is it you were?
My favorite Don King visit on the show. I think it was a repeat. I was in San Antonio during the Western Conference Finals.
Right.
Late night in the hotel room, laughing hysterically as Don King addresses you as, "Hello, Conan, my potato chewing, Guinness brewing, corned beef spewing amigo."
Yeah.
That's comedy.
It was nice of him to come by.
Yeah.
Another credible figure from the world of sports.
Absolutely. Always seems to be available, on call. Been on more often than Tony Randall, and that's a record.
Yes. Randall is mad about that.
Yeah.
So we got to talk. That was some game tonight, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Heck of a game tonight at the Garden, Conan. You know, these Knicks, they continue to amaze. Drawing even now, series at 2 apiece. How about that Houston and Sprewell?
That was incredible.
Yeah. Now just take a beat.
All right.
The Spurs just have too much for them, Conan. They're up 3 games to 1 now, and I see it as pretty much the end for the Knicks come Friday. Now your editors can take care of it. It'll look fine either way.
We should explain to people at home this isn't 12:35. You know, I have another job then.
I got news for you.
Right.
The game's so late tonight, it's not going to be 12:35 anyway.
I know.
It'll be closer to 1:35.
I know. People watching it now have to decide between me and the Farm Report. But anyway, it's the game has not happened yet tonight. Going to be an exciting game, though. I think.
What happened on Monday really changed everything. You know, the Knicks down 0-2, and the atmosphere at the Garden. They win tonight, they're back in it. That's
very cool. I got to ask you about one thing about the world of NBC and broadcasting, which is Mr. Bill Walton. That is, I sit there and I always enjoy your comments. Bill, and then just out of nowhere, Bill Walton will say the most blunt thing that you're not used to hearing from a commentator in a sports game.
You know, one of the greatest players in NBA history and a great collegiate star at UCLA, very outspoken. Someone else will say, "That was a bad percentage shot. That was ill-advised." He'll just say, "What was that?" He broadcasts the game as if he's sitting in a frat house at a kegger, you know, watching it with his buddies, right?
Right.
But the other night, we do a post-game show on cable, on CNBC, and I guess he felt once he moved over to cable that all the restraints were off.
Right.
And he was kind of disgusted by the Knicks point guard play, and he looked in the camera and he said, "Charlie Ward sucks."
I think a penetrating analysis of the problem.
You know, I don't recall ever hearing Jim McKay or Vin Scully do anything like that.
Maybe this is going to be a whole new kind of broadcasting. Don't you think in sports?
I can see it, especially with, you know, call me old school. I'm not so sure the game is served by "that was a gnarly rebound," or "Jeff Van Gundy is a duty head." I mean, I don't see
You're
it,
too
but
square, man.
I guess I am.
You can't understand. Explain one thing to me, because I think everybody notices when they watch the games, the celebrities that start showing up just as the Knicks are doing well. It's like you don't see them the rest of the season, and then suddenly, through some twist of fate, because we're talking about the last seeded team getting into the finals, suddenly all these celebrities are showing up, and they're sitting courtside.
Not the real ones. Spike Lee, Billy Crystal, these are legitimate fans.
They're always there.
Brokaw goes to the games, Ed Bradley, legitimate fans.
They're there during the hard times.
Right, but, you know, when it gets to the finals, the celebrities do show up.
Yeah, I mean, Star Jones, I'm seeing all the time now.
Yeah, well, you know, I think what helps Star Jones is these late starts, these 9 p.m. starts at the Garden. That allows her plenty of time to complete the exhaustive journalistic preparation required for the next day's taping of The View. Now, if the game started at 7:30, she probably would not be able to make it.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You're getting acid on my chair. How do you get those front row seats? How do celebrities score those?
You're thinking of it for yourself?
Yes.
Would you consider dating Jerry Seinfeld?
Yes, I would. No, I'm not the kind of. I don't want to sit down, even if I could get one of those seats.
You just want to be in the building?
I want to play.
Well, you're lanky enough to play.
That's right. I don't have the coordination. I have the height. Now, let's talk about some serious sports talk. Latrell Sprewell. He's a guy that fascinates me because when I first heard about Latrell Sprewell, it's when he had the famous incident where he choked his coach, and I think that's where a lot of people, he came to national attention. But he's been playing very well for the Knicks. A lot of people say he's helped turn the team around. I watch interviews with him, and he seems like a cool guy, and he's very smooth. Was that a one-time event, or is this a troubled guy?
Well, he had a few other incidents, fights with teammates before the Carlissimo thing. But since he's come to New York, you have to give him credit. There's been no bad behavior. There's been no surliness of any kind. He's very polite and very accessible. He answers all the media requests. So he's been fine since he's been with the Knicks.
Right. You said that just because you're afraid he'll come after you.
You know, in his case, really, you have to be more concerned that he'd sue you. He's sued the league a couple of times and continues to pursue it, despite the fact that he seems to have no real case. He sued them about his being suspended. Then he sued his own agent for this is true, for not putting a clause in his contract that would have protected his salary in the event that he assaulted his coach.
See, I have that in my NBC contract. If I hit you right now, I get to keep going.
Well, you know, I mean, his agent should have foreseen the possibility that he would assault the coach, and now I think it's really gone a bit too far, because just this week, he sued his hairdresser for making his cornrows too tight.
Okay.
So, I mean, the whole thing's out of control.
Now, I said you were credible when you came out here. You, of course, been around in sports for a long time. Has anyone ever gotten physical with you, come after you for anything you said or did?
You think anyone wants to try me, Conan?
Not with those guns, no.
Actually, the only time it happened was my very first year. I was a student at Syracuse University, and I got a job doing minor league hockey in the old Eastern Hockey League, which is the actual league that the Paul Newman movie Slapshot is based on.
One of my favorite movies,
and
that movie.
One of the players on our team, the Syracuse Blazers, do you recall the character in the movie Slapshot, Oglethorpe?
Oglethorpe was a monster.
Yeah, he's based on a guy who was on our team, Bill Harpo Goldthorpe, called Harpo because he had a big shock of curly blonde hair. And Harpo thought of only two things, playing hockey and fighting. Sometimes he did them simultaneously on the ice, and other times he would, you know, engage off the ice in bar fights and whatever else. And he and I didn't really have a connection. We didn't have a real affinity for each other. And we're in the bus. It was a bus league. You drove 6-7 hours to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Lewiston, Maine, wherever. The back of the bus was converted into bunks, and the players would take naps. And I was in the last row of seats before the bunk started, reading the New York Times. And he reaches over from behind me, rips the Times out of my hands, and rips it to shreds, showing the subtle sense of humor that was his trademark. And he lets it drop from the bunk onto the floor of the moving bus. So I'm 21 years old and very foolish, and I look up at him, and I realize the rest of the team is watching, and I have to say something. So I say, "Don't be jealous, Goldie. I'll teach you to read." This was not live.
Yeah. Let me guess, this story doesn't end with him going, "Good one," and you becoming friends.
No. He sprang from the bunk with cat-like quickness, grabs me with his left hand, grabs me by the collar, and slams me up against the wall of the moving bus. Then he reaches up into the rack overhead and pulls down, no lie, the hacksaw that the players use to trim the edges of their sticks, and he places it up underneath my chin. Now, I know he's really not intending to decapitate me, but I'm also thinking perhaps this is a man who hasn't thought the situation all the way through.
Right. Possibly.
And hasn't considered that we might hit a pothole, might swerve to avoid a deer on a country road, and then who the hell knows what happens, you know? But
do you keep up with him? No, are you friends?
No, he and I had stopped exchanging Christmas cards some time ago. But perhaps after this, I'll hear from him.
All right. Well, before we go, I want to mention the repackaged laters.
Yeah.
The later time slot, which has really shown since you've left. Now
where's the acid coming from?
Yeah. Well, as people know, later they had a few hosts, and then they just started revolving people.
Yeah, Greg Kinnear did it for a couple of years, and Greg
then,
was terrific, and then he went off to make movies.
And then he went off, and then they just started having revolving hosts, and it's become like jury duty out in L.A. It's just, you have to ask not to be made a host of later.
Not to be made host of later. So the past month, they had me do new openings and closings for some of the better shows that we did in the
Classic
80s
interviews.
and early 90s.
Yeah, well, that's a very good thing.
So tonight, I think, is Smokey Robinson, and tomorrow's the last one, Billy Joel.
Okay, very cool. Well, they should do more of that. The NBA Finals, of course, continue this Friday night on NBC. And Bob, you've always been great to us, even in the beginning. It's always great to see you.
Great to see you.
Bob
Thanks,
Costas, everybody.